Vigilante justice. A desperate act born from rage, grief, or the crushing failure of the system. It's a dangerous line to walk. One step forward and you're a hero. One step too far and you become the villain. Or worse, another victim. Tonight, we examine two stories of those who took justice into their own hands. One became a symbol of a father's wrath, immortalized in a single chilling act. The other, a self-styled predator hunter, met a violent end in a confrontation that may not have been what it seemed. But when does the pursuit of justice cross into something darker? And who really pays the price? Vigilantism is as old as civilization itself. A shadow law, emerging when justice fails or moves too slowly. From frontier posses to lynch mobs, from the Wild West to the dark alleys of modern cities, the impulse remains the same. Someone has to do something. But today, that impulse burns hotter than ever. In an age of true crime saturation, true crime podcasts dissecting every systemic failure, and viral videos of criminals walking free, public trust erodes. The courts are too slow. The sentences are too light. The predators slip through the cracks. And so, ordinary people take up the mantle, armed with rage, righteousness, and sometimes a gun. But history tells us this path is never clean. It's messy, morally fraught, and often, tragically, irreversible. So why does it keep happening? And why now? Because we've seen it work. Or at least we've seen it feel like it worked. Stories like Gary Plauche's, the father who waited at an airport, gun in hand, and executed his son's abductor in cold blood, ripple through culture like a shockwave. No trial, no parole, just raw, unfiltered justice. And for many, that moment wasn't horrifying. It was cathartic, a fantasy played out in real time. The monster, the avenger, and the crowd cheering outside the courtroom. But that's the danger of legends. They don't show the aftermath, the guilt, the family shattered in the crossfire. They just whisper one seductive idea: if the system won't act, someone else will. And in the age of true crime fanatics and viral outrage, that whisper has become a rallying cry. Because if Gary Plauche could do it, why not you? Why not anyone? But let's rewind. Before the gunshot, before the headlines, before Gary Plauche became a symbol of vigilante justice, there was just a father. A man who coached Little League, who worked as a TV repairman, who tucked his son into bed at night. A man whose life, like so many others, was defined by the quiet, ordinary moments. Until it wasn't. Until the unthinkable happened. Until his 11-year-old son Jody vanished without a trace. The investigation that followed was every parent's nightmare. A frantic search, false leads, and the creeping dread that time was running out. Then the horrifying revelation. Jody hadn't been taken by a stranger. He'd been groomed, manipulated, and abducted by someone he trusted. His own karate instructor, Jeff Duckett. A man who had spent months earning the family's confidence, only to betray it in the most monstrous way imaginable. For Gary, the arrest of Duckett should have been the end. Justice would take its course. The system would work. But then came the details. The things Duckett had done to Jody during those days in California. The things no parent should ever have to imagine. And in that moment, something in Gary Plauche snapped. Not in a burst of rage, but in a slow, simmering realization. The law might let this man walk free one day. And that was a risk he wouldn't take. March 16, 1984. Friday morning, Baton Rouge Metropolitan Airport. The day begins like any other. Travelers arriving, announcements crackling over the PA, the hum of routine. But beneath the surface, tension thrums like a live wire. In just hours, Jeff Duckett, the man accused of kidnapping and assaulting 11-year-old Jody Plauche, will be escorted through this very terminal, Police are alert, but not overly concerned. Extradition transfers are procedural, and Duckett is in custody. They don't know Gary Plauche is already here. Gary moves through the airport with an eerie calmness. To anyone passing by, he's just another face in the crowd, maybe a businessman, maybe a father waiting for a flight. But his mind is anything but ordinary. Every minute is a calculation. Every glance at the terminal entrance is a silent rehearsal. He knows what he's about to do. He's accepted the consequences. The only thing left is the act itself. Nearby, news crews set up cameras, anticipating a mundane perp walk. They have no idea they're about to capture one of the most infamous acts of vigilante justice in modern history. Officers escorting Duckett maintain professional detachment, but their instincts prickle. Something feels off. The air is too still. The crowd too quiet. They quicken their pace. Then, a blur of movement. A gunshot. In the split second that follows, time fractures. For Gary, there's only a grim resolution. For Duckett, shock. No time to process, no time to plead. For the officers, disbelief. How did this happen? For the witnesses, a moment burned into memory forever. And just like that, it's over. The moment Gary Plauche pulled the trigger, he didn't just kill Jeff Duckett. He ignited a firestorm of debate. Almost immediately, the court of public opinion rendered its verdict, guilty of justice. News outlets replayed the shooting on loop, turning a brutal act into a morbid spectacle. Talk shows debated it. Op-eds defended it. Strangers sent Gary letters of support, some even including money for his legal defense. To a startling number of people, Gary wasn't a murderer. He was a hero, a father who'd done what the system might not, a man who had taken the ultimate stand when the law hesitated. But beneath the applause lurked something darker. Validation. If Gary could do it, if he could walk away with probation, with public adoration, with his conscience seemingly clear, what stopped others from doing the same? The message was undeniable. Sometimes the law isn't enough. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands. Fast forward decades, and that same mentality pulses through the veins of modern vigilantes. People like Boopac Shakur, armed with cameras and conviction, stalking predators and sting operations. Methods differ, but the core belief remains identical. The system fails. Someone has to act. Yet there's a crucial difference. Gary's moment was born with a singular rage, a father's breaking point. But what happens when vigilantism becomes a habit, a hobby, a brand, when the line between justice and performance blurs? The answer lies in what came next for Boopac Shakur. Not in a courtroom, but in a dim-lit restaurant, with a gun aimed in the wrong direction. In the shadowy corners of the internet, where justice blurs into spectacle, Robert Wayne Lee, better known as Boopac Shakur, carved out his own brand of vigilante fame. Unlike Gary Plauche's single explosive act of vengeance, Boopac's crusade was a sustained campaign. Armed with a smartphone, a fake online persona, and a growing following, he prowled the digital underworld, posing as a 15-year-old girl to lure alleged predators into real-world confrontations. His Instagram account became a theater of exposure, grainy live streams, chaotic meetups, and the euphoric rush of catching a monster on camera. His inspiration? Groups like Dads Against Predators, viral vigilantes who turn predator stings into viral content. But Boopac took it further. He wasn't just documenting encounters, he was performing them. Every confrontation was a spectacle, every arrest a victory lap. And his audience? Over 50,000 followers cheering him on, hungry for the next takedown. But the cracks were already showing. Police reports reveal a troubling pattern. Boopac wasn't just targeting predators. In at least 2 cases, he'd wrongly accused innocent men, leading to property damage and assaults. Law enforcement warned that his methods jeopardized real investigations, that his stings were less about justice and more about chaos. Yet the hunt continued, because in the age of social media, justice isn't just served, it's broadcast. For Boopac Shakur, the line between hero and hazard was thinning by the day. September 29th, 2023, Friday, Pontiac, Michigan. 10:15, a restaurant parking lot. The air is thick with the kind of tension that precedes violence. Boopac Shakur, Robert Wainley, walks into a dimly lit restaurant, his phone likely recording, his followers waiting for another predator expose. But tonight isn't a scripted sting, it's a collision course. Across the room, two young men sit at a table, a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, strangers to Boopac's online crusade. Their night was supposed to be mundane, cheap food, idle talk, until a stranger approaches, until the accusations start. For Boopac, this is another mission, another predator to expose. The rush of confrontation drowns out doubt. He doesn't know these men, he doesn't need to. The narrative is already written in his head. Guilty until proven innocent. For the teens, this moment is filled with confusion, then fear. A grown man is calling one of them a pedophile, shoving a camera in their faces. The situation escalates too fast. Words turn to shoves, then a punch. Instinct takes over. Fight or flight. One pulls a knife, the other a gun. 10:30 p.m. The gunshot. A single trigger pull changes everything. Boopac collapses, his camera still rolling. His audience now unwitting witnesses to his own demise. The teens flee, their panic absolute. What just happened? Was this self-defense? Murder? The police will later admit, there's no evidence these men were predators. No proof this was a planned sting. Just a tragic case of mistaken identity and lethal escalation. 10:35 p.m. The aftermath. Paramedics arrive too late. The restaurant, once noisy with argument, is now a crime scene. Boopac's followers flood social media with outrage and grief, turning him into a martyr overnight. Law enforcement releases a terse statement. Vigilantism has consequences. But the real horror lingers in the unanswered questions. What if Boopac had waited for evidence? What if the teens had walked away? What if the internet hadn't convinced a man that justice was a solo act? Two families shattered. One man is dead. And the cycle of vigilante violence claims another casualty. We tell ourselves we can fix broken things. That if we just push hard enough, if we act, we can bend the world toward justice. Gary Plauche believed this. Boopac Shakur believed this. And for a moment it almost feels true. The predator falls, the crowd cheers. But the universe doesn't care about justice. It doesn't care about intentions or cameras or the perfect narrative. It rolls forward, indifferent, while we scramble in the dark, convinced we're holding the strings. Gary pulled a trigger and became a folk hero. Boopac staged things and became a cautionary tale. Two paths, two outcomes, neither truly in their control. Because fate isn't a force you command, it's the tide you drown in. The wrong accusation, the misfired bullet, the moment the hunter becomes the hunted. Vigilantism seduces us with a fantasy of order, that evil can be solved with a bullet, a confrontation, a viral takedown. But peel back the curtain, and you'll find the same truth every time. We are not the architects of consequence. Sometimes, we're just toys on a table. And somewhere in the shadows, a gloved hand reaches down and decides when the game ends.